They say family never turns on its own, but mine did, with a smile. The night it happened, I wasn't even angry. Just numb. The kind of numb that comes when betrayal doesn't surprise you anymore. My stepmother's voice still echoes in my mind, sharp and deliberate. Respect is earned, Lena, not given. The way she said it, slow, cold, in front of everyone, felt like a blade dressed in silk. It wasn't the first time she humiliated me, but that night was different. My father sat there, silent, pretending not to notice the tremor in my hands. My brother smirked, proud of the scene she made. And I just stood there, the outsider in my own home. People say silence is dignity. But silence also burns. It hides the scream you never let out. That night, I decided something quietly. If respect had to be earned, then so would her downfall. And when the truth finally came out, she was the one begging for silence. When my mother died, the house didn't fall silent, it just changed its rhythm. The laughter became polite, the dinners more formal, and love turned into something that had to be earned. My father remarried barely a year later. Her name was Victoria. Elegant, confident, always in control. The kind of woman who could silence a room just by walking into it. At first, I tried to like her. I really did. She'd smile at me, touch my shoulder, say things like, "We'll make this family whole again, Lena." But behind her smile was a test, a silent judgment in her eyes every time I spoke, every time I made a mistake. Family dinners became performances. The table was long, the silverware gleaming, and Victoria always at the head. My father would talk about business, Evan, her son, my half-brother, would brag about his job in finance, and I'd sit quietly, careful not to breathe too loud. If I tried to share something about my small antique shop, she'd interrupt with a gentle laugh. "Oh, dear, such a sentimental little hobby. But everyone needs a pastime, right?" The others would chuckle, and my father would sip his wine, pretending not to hear the sting in her words. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the glass cabinet, smiling faintly, pretending I belonged. I'd tell myself it was fine. Families take time. Love takes patience. But deep down, I felt like a guest renting space in my own childhood home. Victoria was obsessed with appearances. Every gesture, every word had to be perfect. "Reputation," she once told me, "is our family's greatest inheritance." She said it like it was scripture. So I learned to dress the way she wanted, speak softly, and hide my grief behind grace. Evan, of course, was her golden boy. When he came home, the house would light up, literally. Victoria would host dinner parties just to show him off. My son, the success story, she'd beam. "I was Harold's girl," said with the same tone you'd use for an old memory you're trying to forget. One evening, as we prepared for a family photo, she told me not to stand too close to her. "It's not personal," she said with a smile, "but the dress colors might clash." She guided Evan to stand beside her instead. Everyone laughed, but I felt something cold coil inside me. Later that night, I found her sitting in my mother's old chair, legs crossed, sipping tea as if she owned every inch of this house. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "I'm just tired," I replied. She tilted her head. "Respect, Lena, is earned, not given. Remember that." Her words lingered long after she left the room. I didn't know it then, but something deeper was brewing behind that polished smile, something that would shatter her perfect world soon enough. Because when a woman builds her respect on secrets, the truth becomes her greatest enemy. It started with a letter. A crisp white envelope with the family crest, laid neatly beside my father's morning coffee. Victoria was the one who brought it to him, her expression unreadable. "From Mr. Reeves," she said lightly, referring to the family lawyer. "His finalizing some estate details." My stomach twisted at the mention of the word estate. My late mother's inheritance had never been discussed openly. It was like a ghost that haunted the dining table, hovering over every polite conversation we tried to have. That evening, when I asked my father about it, he looked uneasy. "It's just paperwork, Lena," he muttered, eyes fixed on his plate. Victoria smiled faintly, never missing a beat. "Oh, Harold, don't confuse her. It's complicated adult stuff." "Adult stuff?" I echoed quietly. "I'm 27, not a child." Her tone sharpened, though her smile didn't fade. "Then act like one. Be grateful your father takes care of you." The room fell silent. Evan laughed under his breath. "She's always so sensitive," he said, shaking his head. Mom's right, you really overthink everything. Their words cut deeper than they sounded. It wasn't just mockery, it was dismissal. Every opinion I had, every attempt to belong, brushed aside like lint on a sleeve. A week later, Victoria organized a charity dinner. She invited every important family in town, the kind who valued appearances more than truth. I offered to help with the setup, but she waved me off. You'll be attending, not serving, dear, she said sweetly. Though, if you insist on helping, you can arrange the name cards. It was during that dinner that I realized how invisible I truly was. Victoria gave a speech about legacy and family honor, her voice echoing through the chandelier-lit hall. My father smiled proudly beside her. Evan filmed it for social media. And I sat at the far end of the table, my name tag half hidden under the napkin. When the local newspaper photographer asked for a family picture, Victoria positioned everyone carefully. Herself in the center, Harold beside her, Evan just behind. I took a step forward, unsure where to stand, and she turned to me with that same calm cruelty. Oh, Lena, she said softly, let's get one of just the immediate family first. The words were polite, but final. The photographer hesitated. My father said nothing. The flash went off, and I felt like the light had burned through me. After dinner, I found myself outside, standing under the flickering porch lamp. Sophie, my best friend, had come to drop off something I'd forgotten at the shop. She saw my face before I could hide it. Lena, what did she do this time? I forced a smile. Nothing new. Just another reminder that I'm not really one of them. She frowned. Then stop letting her decide what you are. Her words stayed with me all night. Later, I passed by the study and heard muffled voices. Victoria's laughter, low and hushed. She'll never see it coming, Harold. Once the paperwork's done, the estate will be secure. For us. I froze. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The estate. For us. When the door opened suddenly, she found me standing there. For the first time, her smile vanished. What exactly did you hear? She asked, her voice icy. I met her gaze, trembling but steady. Enough to know respect isn't the only thing you've been trying to earn. Her eyes darkened. Careful, Lena. Curiosity can be expensive. That was the night I realized this wasn't just about pride. It was about power, and I was standing in the way of hers. And Victoria Carter never let anyone stand in her way for long. After that night, everything changed, just not in the way I hoped. Victoria became colder, sharper. Her cruelty no longer hid behind smiles. It was open now, deliberate, like a performance she knew my father would never stop. It started with the little things. She began excluding me from family decisions, even small ones. The staff took orders only from her. My room was accidentally locked one evening, my belongings packed neatly in boxes outside the door. When I asked why, she replied, I thought you'd prefer more privacy downstairs. Near the kitchen. It wasn't privacy. It was punishment. At breakfast, she made comments disguised as advice. Lena, dear, you really should focus on finding a husband. You're not career-minded enough to manage alone. Evan smirked. Or maybe you can manage the antique shop forever. It suits you. Old things for an old soul. They laughed. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. Every day, I told myself to stay calm, to endure. But patience is like glass. It doesn't break loudly. It just cracks until it shatters. One weekend, Victoria hosted her famous garden party, the kind that made it to the society pages. The theme was new beginnings. Ironically, I felt like something inside me was ending. I spent hours preparing the floral arrangements, trying to make everything perfect. It was foolish. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd notice my effort. When the guests arrived, the music played softly, laughter filled the air, and I stood in the background, invisible once again. Until I heard her voice, smooth and venomous. Oh, Lena insisted on helping, Victoria announced loudly. She's wonderful with manual work, always keeps her hands busy. The guests chuckled politely, glancing at me as though I were the hired help. My face burned. I looked at my father, but he avoided my eyes. Something snapped inside me. I put down the tray I was holding and walked toward her. Is this what you wanted, Victoria? To humiliate me? I said quietly. She tilted her head, pretending confusion. Humiliate? Oh, dear, don't be so dramatic. You're just too sensitive. The crowd watched in silence. I felt my throat tighten, my chest heavy with shame and rage. Before I could speak again, Evan stepped in. Mom, maybe Lane is just jealous. You did say the lawyer's papers will make everything official soon. Victoria's eyes widened slightly. A slip. Official soon. The inheritance. I turned to her, my voice trembling. What papers? Her smile returned, practiced and calm. Nothing for you to worry about. Just the future of this family. That word, this family, hit harder than anything she'd ever said. Because she wasn't talking about our family. She was talking about hers. Later that night, I overheard whispers again. Claire, our neighbor, was chatting with Sophie in the hallway. Strange woman, that Victoria, she said. Did you know she used to go by another name before she married Harold? Victoria Mills, I think. Or was it something else? Sophie looked at me, eyes wide. Lena, what if she's hiding something? My heart pounded. The idea seemed absurd, but deep down, it made too much sense. I went to my room, the one near the kitchen, and pulled out my mother's old photo box. Inside was a single envelope labeled in her handwriting, for Lena, when truth becomes unbearable. My fingers trembled as I held it. Outside, I could hear Victoria's laughter drifting through the halls, confident, untouchable. But that envelope, it felt heavier than paper. It felt like the beginning of her end. It was a Sunday morning when my world finally cracked. The house was unusually quiet, that strange kind of calm that comes right before a storm. I was arranging the shelves in my little antique shop when my father called. His voice was dry, formal, a tone he used when something was wrong. Lena, come home, he said. There's something we need to discuss. I drove back, uneasy. When I entered the living room, Victoria was there, dressed immaculately in white, like she was attending a ceremony rather than hosting a family meeting. Evan lounged on the sofa, his phone in hand, smirking faintly. On the table lay a folder, sealed, thick, and stamped by Dr. Reeves, our lawyer. Victoria gestured for me to sit. We've finalized the estate matters, she began smoothly. It's all very simple. Your father's assets, the properties, and, well, everything, will now be consolidated under one trust. I frowned. What does that mean for me? She smiled, that perfect, polished smile that made my stomach twist. It means the family wealth will be protected. For the rightful heirs. I glanced at my father, but he couldn't meet my eyes. Dad. I whispered. He sighed, his voice barely holding steady. Victoria convinced me it's best this way, Lena. You'll still have the shop. It's what your mother left for you. The room spun. The shop? The dusty corner-eyed clung to for sanity. That was all? So you're giving everything else to her and Evan? I asked, my voice shaking. Victoria leaned forward, clasping her hands. Don't make this emotional, dear. This is business. You're not married, you have no dependents. It's practical. Practical. I laughed bitterly. You erased me from my own family for convenience. Her tone hardened. I didn't erase you, Lena. You simply failed to earn your place. The words hit harder than any slap. Evan chuckled, muttering, guess respect really isn't given. That was the moment something inside me broke, not with anger, but grief. Deep, hollow grief. I looked at my father, hoping for one last sign that I wasn't alone in this. But he just whispered, it's done, sweetheart. Don't make it harder. The room blurred. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled out of the house, past the portraits, past the smell of her perfume that now owned every inch of my mother's home. Outside, I sat on the steps, tears finally breaking through the calm. The humiliation wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant, that in their eyes, I didn't belong. 4 days, I didn't answer calls. Sophie came by, worried. Lena, talk to me. What happened? They disinherited me, I said flatly. Everything. Even my mother's jewelry. Victoria said it's part of the family trust. Sophie stared, speechless. That's illegal, isn't it? Not if you've rewritten the definition of family. She sat beside me quietly. You can fight this. I shook my head. No, not yet. Because in the silence that followed, something unexpected grew inside me. Not rage, Clarity. The kind that comes when you've lost everything except the truth. I started remembering things. The strange visits from Dr. Reeves. The way Victoria always intercepted letters meant for my father. The slip Claire made about her other name. It all began forming a pattern. That night, I opened the envelope from my mother's photo box, the one labeled "When Truth Becomes Unbearable." Inside was a letter and an old photograph, Victoria, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. The back of the photo read, Victoria Mills, married to Thomas Reeves, 2002. Thomas Reeves. The same last name as our family lawyer. My breath caught. Could it be a coincidence? Or was it something more sinister, something that could expose everything Victoria built her reputation on? As I read my mother's note, her words seemed to echo through the years. If someone ever tries to erase you, find out what they are hiding. The truth always demands respect. I sat there for a long time, the letter trembling in my hands. I wasn't powerless anymore. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the quiet, unwanted daughter. I felt something sharper, purpose. Victoria thought she had rewritten my story, erased my name from our legacy. But she forgot one thing, the truth never stays buried. And I was going to dig until her respect, her wealth, and her perfect image crumbled to dust. Grief sharpened into attention. The days after the letter were quiet, but not empty. I stopped waiting for others to fix what they'd broken. Instead, I learned to look for the small seams where lies slipped through, a name on a photograph, a date on a receipt, the careless way Victoria said official when she thought no one was listening. Those seams were my map. I started with what I had, my mother's envelope, Claire's gossip, and a photograph with a name. Sophie sat with me at the kitchen table while I spread everything out like evidence in a detective show. She tapped the photo gently. If Dr. Reeves is connected to her, someone will know. Old town records, marriage licenses, people forget to hide paper. I need proof, I said. Something that ties her to the trust and to him. Sophie squeezed my hand. Then we'll find it. I hired someone I trusted, not a lawyer, not a friend in high places, but a private investigator with patience and a soft voice. He dug where I couldn't, courthouse microfilm, archived marriage registries, property transfers that happened at midnight, a series of shell companies that suddenly appeared the year Victoria moved in. Every file came back with small confirmations, a different surname for Victoria, the same address linked to a forwarding service, transfers from companies nobody could name. The more we found, the more the pattern formed. A carefully constructed paper life meant to hide real ties. But the smart part wasn't just gathering papers. It was turning cold facts into something that would cut through Victoria's stagecraft. She ran on reputation, on carefully curated charity photos and speeches. I needed a place where image mattered, where a lie could be exposed in front of the very people she used as armor. I rehearsed my restraint. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't attack her personally in a way that looked vengeful. Instead, I'd set a scene where truth did the humiliating. I timed it to a gala she couldn't resist, her annual charity event, a night of cameras and applause. If the proof was shown there, official certificates, bank transfers, a signed affidavit from the private investigator, the room would not be able to pretend ignorance. Her control depended on people believing her. If the belief collapsed, so would she. Still, the danger was real. If Dr. Reeves was on her side, he could bury documents, call off witnesses, or leak my plan and ruin me further. That's why I prepared redundancies, copies of everything stored with Sophie, an anonymous tip to a journalist who had once exposed a local scam, and a sealed envelope with certified copies of the marriage and corporate filings delivered to the county clerk with instructions for immediate release if anything happened to me. Every night I practiced the voice I would use, calm, unblinking, almost bored. There is power in not needing to convince. There's more danger in staying steady while others fall apart. I taught myself to look the room in the face and let the papers do the rest. Emotion had shifted into calculation. I was no longer the woman who waited for a father's protection. I was someone who understood how systems and signatures worked. I had allies now, Sophie, the investigator, a reporter with a taste for scandal. They were imperfect, but they were real. On the morning of the gala, I walked through the house and paused in my mother's old study. The letter's paper felt thin in my pocket, but it held a gravity I could not explain. I slid the sealed copies into an envelope and put it in my purse. My hands did not shake. "Are you ready?" Sophie asked, voice low. "As ready as truth can make me," I answered. Outside, the town's lights glittered like applause waiting to be given. Inside, a woman whose whole life depended on being untouchable was polishing her smile. I walked toward the ballroom, toward every camera and every face that had laughed at me, and toward a silence I planned to break. The night of the gala shimmered with gold and false laughter. Every corner of the ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers, every guest dressed like royalty. And there she was, my stepmother, Victoria Carter, standing at the center of it all. Her confidence filled the room like perfume, expensive, overpowering, suffocating. I stood near the back, watching her glide between donors, smiling for cameras, collecting compliments like trophies. My father, pale and distracted, trailed behind her. And Evan, her golden son, laughed loudly at every fake joke. She spotted me across the room and froze for half a second, just long enough for me to see the flicker of discomfort. Then she recovered. "Lena," she called brightly. "How lovely that you could make it." I smiled. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Her voice lowered, sugar turning into poison. "Do try to behave yourself tonight. This is a respectable event." Respect. The same word she'd used to humiliate me, to erase me. I almost laughed. The band began playing soft jazz. The guests gathered as the host announced, "Please welcome our gracious patron, Mrs. Victoria Carter, to say a few words about family and legacy." The applause was thunderous. She stepped onto the stage, radiant under the lights. "Family," she began, "isn't about blood. It's about honor, unity, and respect." That word again, respect. I felt my pulse quicken, my palms cold against the folded documents in my purse. Victoria continued, basking in the glow. "We build our lives on trust, and tonight, we celebrate the legacy of the Carter name." I took a step forward, then another. The crowd parted slightly, confused by my calm approach. "Funny thing about legacies," I said, my voice clear, echoing through the hall. "They tend to look different when you stop lying about them." The room went still. Victoria blinked, frozen mid-smile. "Excuse me." I pulled the microphone gently from her hand. "You've told everyone here how much you value honesty, reputation, respect. So, let's be honest, shall we?" From my purse, I withdrew the sealed envelope, the same one that had lived in my mother's box for years. "These are public records. Marriage certificates. Financial transfers. Proof that the woman you know as Victoria Carter was, in fact, Victoria Mills Reeves, married to Dr. Thomas Reeves." Gasps filled the room. The lawyer's name echoed like a thunderclap. I turned toward the crowd. "Dr. Reeves, the family lawyer who just so happened to finalize our inheritance papers. Interesting coincidence, isn't it?" Dr. Reeves, pale as marble, stood up from his table, stammering, That's private." I cut him off. "Fraud isn't private, doctor. It's criminal." Victoria's mask cracked for the first time. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, her composure unraveling. I opened the folder and spread the documents on the podium. Official seals, signatures, and timestamps. "Everything I'm saying is right here. You forged financial transfers to redirect assets. You falsified your identity to secure the trust. And you used my father's grief to rewrite our family's legacy." My father's voice trembled. "Victoria, is this true?" She turned to him, desperate. "Harold, please, she's lying. She's jealous. She's always been jealous." I looked straight at her. "Jealous of what? Your lies? Your cruelty? Or the way you built your respect by destroying everyone else's?" The guests began whispering, the sound like a wave of judgment closing in. Evan stood frozen, eyes wide, realizing that his mother's empire was collapsing in front of him. Victoria reached out, shaking. "Lena, please, stop this." I stepped back. "You told me once that respect is earned, not given. I guess tonight, you've earned yours." She looked around the room, searching for an ally, but found only silence. The same silence she once used to crush me. My father sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. The reporters took photos. The lights flashed. Every camera that once worshipped her elegance now captured her ruin. I handed the microphone back, calm and steady. "The truth doesn't need a spotlight," I said softly. "It shines on its own." As I walked away, I heard the crowd erupt, whispers, accusations, disbelief. Behind me, Victoria's voice broke, trembling, begging for the one thing she had always denied me. Please, someone, listen to me. But no one did. Because in that room, under those perfect lights, she had finally lost the only thing she ever truly cared about, her respect. And I, the girl she tried to erase, walked out with mine restored. After that night, silence became the loudest sound in our house. It wasn't the same kind of silence that once made me feel invisible. It was heavier, cleaner, like the air after a storm. The world didn't end when Victoria's lies collapsed. It just reset. The newspapers ran their stories for a week, socialite exposed for fraudulent identity and forged inheritance trust. The photos were merciless, her eyes hollow, her perfect smile gone. Overnight, every door that once opened for her quietly shut. Evan left town before the scandal reached his office. My father withdrew completely, too ashamed to face anyone. For weeks, he sat in his study, the trust papers spread across his desk like pieces of a broken mirror. I visited him once. He didn't look up when I entered. I didn't see it, Lena, he whispered. I just wanted peace. I know, I said softly. But peace built on silence isn't peace, Dad. It's surrender. He nodded, tears glistening in the reflection of the lamplight. I didn't hate him, not anymore. Some people destroy you on purpose. Others do it by pretending not to notice. His guilt was punishment enough. As for Victoria, she vanished. Word was she fled to another city, trying to change her name again. But reputations don't die quietly anymore, not when truth has proof. Everywhere she went, her story followed like a shadow. The woman who taught others about respect had none left for herself. I didn't celebrate her downfall. I didn't need to. Revenge, when it's real, doesn't taste sweet, it tastes honest. And honesty, after years of humiliation, was enough. I returned to the antique shop, my little corner of time. I started restoring old pieces again, not because I needed the money, but because each repair felt symbolic. I was putting things back together, the way they were meant to be, without lies, without pretending. Sophie visited often. She'd watch me polish the old oak counter and say, "You know, you look lighter now." I smiled. Maybe because I finally stopped trying to earn respect from people who never had any to give. One afternoon, my father stopped by the shop, holding a small wooden box. Inside were my mother's wedding ring and a handwritten note. "This belongs to you," he said quietly. "It always did." I slipped the ring on my finger, feeling its familiar weight. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a circle, unbroken, complete again. That night, as I closed the shop, I caught my reflection in the window. Not the timid, uncertain woman I once was, but someone calm, steady, and unafraid of being seen. "Respect isn't something others can give or take," I whispered to the empty street. "It's what you carry when no one else believes in you." The city lights flickered like quiet applause. I walked home slowly, the cool night wind brushing against my skin. The past was still there, it always would be, but it no longer defined me. The humiliation, the silence, the betrayal, all of it had built the foundation for something stronger than revenge, self-respect. Victoria lost her crown, but I found my peace. And in the end, that's the real justice, when truth restores what pride tried to destroy.